Alright, well, I'm finally level 100. I'm pushing through hell. It's time to actually get some upgrades for my gear. Looking online, I definitely saw some of these things are really good. Let's look at... Oh yeah, this is one of the rings that's supposed to be really good for my build. What? Huh? Well, maybe there's other stuff I can afford. These gloves are supposed to be the biggest upgrade, right? Huh? Wait, and these are a bad pair. What's a +4 cost? Huh? How do I afford anything? Is this you? Are you struggling to make gold? You having trouble finding anything good or any methods to make money? Well, today a simple cat is going to help you out with some tips and tricks. Streaming Hero Siege has made me realize there's a lot of unanswered questions for new players when they reach level 100 and start their foray into the endgame and beyond. The simple cat who plays an entirely unhealthy amount of this game, a lot of these players have turned to me in my stream chat. I get plenty of questions like, what gear should I focus on first? Where should I farm? Why do items cost so much? What class is the best? How do I beat Inferno? Why is your mouse so small? It's not small, it's completely... And the question I get the most, how do I make money? How do I make money to afford all this gear on the auction house that I feel absolutely priced out of? Well, I want to shine some light on that and try to give some help. As the economy of Season 6 slowly begins to stabilize, some items are becoming significantly cheaper for your average player reaching endgame, especially when the most popular classes for pushing endgame are physical, usually like the Plague Doctor, which is what I sank over 100 hours into on my playthrough and trade. The unfortunate part is, if you aren't experienced with Hero Siege, the resources on how to generate income in Trade League aren't really apparent. There's methods and strats being provided, but the context of how you make money with those and how you turn into profit can be vague and hard to understand. So today, a little cat is going to take it upon himself to answer this question. Disclaimer, I'm not an expert. I just played a lot of Trade this season, saw trends for money and how they've evolved. I'm sure plenty of people may have other opinions on their own strategies, but I wanted a tried, true, and consistent way to generate cash for earlier level players to get a bit of economic power and start to push into higher difficulty levels for more rewards. Let's clear up one thing first off that a lot of people assume, that Hero Siege gold farming is just farming for heroics and selling them, and that's how you make money. I get a lot of people doomering in my chat saying they farmed for 2 days, got a belt of infinite wealth as their only heroic, and can't afford anything. Heroics are a great way to make money, but there are a lot of them, and not all of them are worth much. But they aren't the only way to make money in Hero Siege, and you shouldn't target them as your sole means of income. If you rely on only heroic drops, you'll be extremely disappointed really often. Let's talk about how you make money early, incremental gains, and passive farms. When starting out at a low amount of gold, you should be looking to sell everything incrementally and increase your gold to where you can afford the gear you want or need to progress and farm faster or smoother. These gains will be small, but they'll add up quickly, and most can be done passively as you farm targeted things for profit. You most likely have the means to do this already, or some of these things sitting in your inventory that you haven't thought about or noticed if you're newer. We'll start with the easiest method possible, that almost any build can do as long as you can survive and kill monsters in Hell 1. And the faster you can move, the better. So if you're a teleport gamer, you're winning. Let's talk about mining. Mining is something that at a glance is a tedious process but can generate a lot of income. Starting in normal, head to Highland Mines, mine all the copper you see on your way to the dungeon, and go into abandoned mine. Keep doing this until you can mine iron, go to Nightmare, mine iron until you can mine gold. Then switch to Hell and mine gold, ruby, and jade until you're at 1,000 mining. You now have another source of income via hitting valuable mining nodes, targeting jade and terrethium, which are green and blue on your map. You can then prospect this ore in the Prospectron. Jadanium powder from jade ore sells for 500,000 gold or more. Terrethium cores are usually around 1 million each. Each smaller thing that comes from these ores can also turn a profit when prospected, usually when sold in bulk. Jewel crafters and people using these, or people who need gems, are the ones who are going to pay quite a lot for them. Taking it one step further, you could even level jewel crafting and craft jewels for a profit, but the easy, more passive method is just hitting green and blue veins on your map while farming other content in outdoors or satanic zones. You can even focus on this entirely if gear isn't a spot where you can get into Hell too easily. Pretty good way to make money. In passive farm, you can sell things like Bifrost keys, which currently go for around 2 million and fluctuate up and down, angelic keys, which are around 1.5 million, high runes, which can be from 200k to 1.7 million, and dungeon keys, which vary from dungeon layout and desirability, but can always turn a profit. Now all these things are useful to you as a player, and you're probably saying, hey, don't I need these? But if they aren't something you can immediately use, and an upgraded piece of gear is, and will increase your damage or survivability, or your speed, why not just get the gear? Increasing your capability, safety, and farm speed now is better than holding on to materials you can't immediately use or turn a profit with. Bifrost keys are a special mention because while they are excellent as a source of potential free Uber boss summons and the elusive Vanaheim quest, they're so profitable it's silly. Even satanic dice are a good option. They're desirable to people rerolling high-end items at endgame for better stats. They currently go for about 900k plus. This is the first step of the strategy. Sell little things you can't use. Keys, runes. The advanced portion of this involves using glyphs like the Bifrost glyph, the Allfather glyph, things like Runemaster or Keymaster. These are glyphs you level up in the dungeons, and these will give you higher drop chance for these things. Once you get some investment and you want to switch to your dungeon keys being less something you sell, more something to run, this is where you start moving if you want to keep using this as a way to gain gold. The next incremental gain would be satanic crystals. I've noticed a lot of people in my chat are not familiar with how satanic crystals work, and as they are kind of a new thing for this season, I'm not surprised. I learned this season how to use them myself. All those satanics and set items that you're picking up and probably trying to ID and try to sell and price checking, well, the market, what you can do with them, don't just vendor them. Take them to the Prospectron, put them in, break them down into powder. Every 500 of this powder turns into one satanic crystal at the crafting cube. The current value of a crystal is 200,000 gold. This isn't a lot of money in the grand scheme of things if you're looking at a 50 million gold item, but enough of these makes up to 1 million gold, and you can just keep doing this. This is another passive farm that just requires you to snatch up and melt satanics you find. Yeah, you gotta go loot them, but for the most part, you're probably already doing that if you're new to the game or running through zones and trying to figure out what's good or not. The next step for incremental gains is a bit more difficult, and it's what you'd expect, and most likely as a new player don't enjoy or understand very well, and there's nothing wrong with that. Selling valuable S-tier satanics. The unfortunate truth of selling S-tier satanics is it only becomes easy once you recognize what has actual value. And this is entirely based on trial and error. Going to the market, searching the item, and the cost based on the roles and values. This is a lot of information that is mostly learned from experience and playing the game. I wish there was an easy answer to this, but it's really just sitting there searching one item after another, filtering price from low to high and getting an idea. Most people just hop into my stream chat to kind of get an idea of what items are worth, and we try to help them out as much as we can, but a lot of the times just going to the market is the only method. I will say that after a few times of doing this, you'll start to notice the trends of what's worth money and what isn't, and you'll begin to get an understanding of what you dust and what you keep. This is especially easy if you're playing a meta class like a Plague Doctor, where you can see what costs the most because you're trying to buy it. A good rule of thumb is that a lot of satanic flasks and S-tier satanic charms are very valuable. Things like Raider's Torch, Adventurer's Quiver, Anubis Ankh Charm. These things are extremely valuable depending on their roles, and they're not as rare as you would think. The next part of incremental gains is boss materials. Boss materials are something that are obviously valuable as the bosses they let you fight drop some extremely high tier items that are a lot of gold, though mostly this is on Hell 5 where the drop is guaranteed. So when you're still progressing to Hell 5, or not at the point where you can easily kill bosses and guarantee that loot, these are also a good way to generate revenue. While you may be tempted to hang on to them for a bigger payout, the immediate value of these is immense early on. Battle fragments from Eternal Battlefields for Sung Lee can be sold for 150k per. Dimensional shards for Uber Reaper can be sold for 60k or more. Scrolls of Ra are extremely valuable since they are used for the Inferno unlock boss, Amun-Ra, and can be sold for 400 to 500,000 each, and currently drop out of the chests at shrines. Then we have boss parts. For Uber Damien, boss parts drop from the Act bosses, Garag, Reaper, Anubis, Damien, Carp, Satan. All 6 of these pieces make a Key of Terror, which can be sold for 5 to 6 million gold as of making this video. However, the most recent patch massively buffed how often these drop and how plentiful they are. So capitalizing on this sooner than later is a great method to get yourself some gear. Now, beyond just selling little things and satanic drops, there's a more advanced method. The one you may or may not have heard of. This is the method that takes some investment, Codex of Goblin Hordes. The method requires significant investment in the form of a 5-socket codex with an ideally high duration, and 5 orbs that vary in price but are usually pretty expensive. This is best split between yourself and 2 other players. And I say 2 other players because running it with 4 players causes a lot of crashes, disconnects, and can brick the entire game, causing you all to lose out on profit. Putting it with others lowers the overall cost, makes it more efficient, and quick, especially if you pick up good AoE teleporting classes like Stormweavers to help kill goblins. The strat's pretty straightforward. It's how you most likely see people printing heroics and the occasional angelic in general chat if you have that turned on. Codex with a good duration, ideally 50 minutes or more, get an Angel Orb, a Midas Orb, a Gladiator Orb, and 2 Doom Orbs. Then look at the journal in game under the section for codexes in the Rune Words section, and make sure you socket them in the order it specifies. Doing it wrong is pretty devastating considering you just wasted a lot of gold. Once you do it right, it'll have the rune word affix, it'll say Goblin Horde Codex, and you can get started. You and 2 other players will sit there, start the codex by clicking it, head to the zone, kill the goblins, and then vote for a reset. You keep doing this for the entire duration of the codex. Don't go into dungeons, don't worry about other monsters, just kill goblins. You want to make sure your filter is only showing SS tier items and S tier flasks and charms, to make sure that you're not wasting your time running all over the map every time you see a red or green star. You'll sometimes have to travel across the entire map to loot something, making this even more annoying. Possible. It also works with incremental passive income. You get a ton of high runes and keys from killing goblins and a lot of raw gold. This means you're pretty consistently breaking even or massively profiting depending on your RNG. The warning is, though, that RNG is RNG. It's totally possible to invest 10 to 20 million in a group farm of this and go completely dry while everyone else absolutely prints. This has happened to many people I know, including myself. You've got to keep this in mind. But it is a tried and true method that everyone utilizes and is currently the best way to make money from everyone I've heard. The orbs and codexes can only be found on Hell 5 or Inferno and only can be used on those difficulties. That's why this is a late game strategy, and the investment is anywhere from 10 to 30 million per person, depending on the total market value of the materials, which can go up or down. There's always people looking to do codexes, either in the Hero Siege Discord or even in my stream chat and sometimes my Discord. Now, that's the best advice this cat can offer you. In the future, I'll try to get up some videos to explain how to approach initial endgame for much newer players. And I like to put together a sheet detailing what items are valuable in trade. It just takes a lot of time and prices fluctuate constantly with every patch. Either way, if you keep your mindset to selling things you get, learning what's valuable, and following a good strategy, you should be on a quick path to getting your character kitted and blasting. As far as what to do to generate these things, I could just tell you the basic go to Satanic Zones in Hell 2 and beyond. And the reason I say Hell 2 instead of immediately telling you Hell 5 is you may not be strong enough for that. Hell 2 is the minimum difficulty you want to aim for when you're weak or a newer player because it's where you first get your inherent magic find. So Hell 2 is when you start getting magic find, aim for that, progress up. As long as you're killing fast, just keep going up in difficulty until you hit Hell 5. Satanic Zones are great, but sometimes the modifiers are not great or the zone is really bad. Looking at you, Corrupted Cave, you piece of trash. If the Satanic Zone isn't ideal, let's talk about the best dungeon that everyone loves. Called 3-3. Mushroom Desert in Act 3, the dungeon Forgotten City. This is probably one of the best places to farm in the game, has high pack density, very linear type pathway, is filled with shrines and chests. This means you're opening chests full of gold or relics you need for your build, since those are a pain in the ass to find, and you're triggering shrines, which can give you scrolls of Ra or spawn a Guardian of Hell that gives you a portal to the Archdemon Plateau, giving you the ability to fight Reaper, Damien, Satan at the same time, and if you don't horribly die to the 10,000 projectiles on your screen, you get loot and boss parts. The zone is where a lot of people just live to make their profit. However, if you grow tired of it, there's other good zones like 3-2 and 2-5. Those dungeons are also dense and pretty linear, but nothing really compares to 3-3 with its tightly packed shrines, chests, and easy hallway to navigate. Most players I know who are very profitable or have a lot of money spend a lot of their time in 3-3, so I can only highly suggest it. It's probably one of my favorite areas to go. It's where I go whenever I just feel like killing monsters. Alternatively, you can just farm act bosses for the previously mentioned parts for the Key of Terror. Best done in combination with the Soulforge Ring quest if you're on that quest. You can even just mine if you want to. And this can be done in tandem with doing act bosses or moving to 3-3 or whatever you want to do in Satanic Zones. You could try to reset zones for targeting Eternal Battlefields or Shadow Realms, sell the fragments. You could even do Chaos Tower, which I personally think sucks. But apparently one guy, one time, someday, 1 moon ago, got an angelic from it, so I guess that means it's good, according to some people. Do whatever you prefer, and remember, killing more monsters faster is always the play. Hopefully some of this has been helpful to you. Let me know in the comments if you have questions. Feel free to pop in my Discord to ask questions as well. Stop by my stream as I'm live 5 to 6 days a week playing Hero Siege or other ARPGs. And I'll be happy to answer questions and help you any way I can. If I'm too cat-brained to help, plenty of great experienced players for this game and in my community are kind and will assist you. If there are other videos or information you'd like to see, leave it in the comments. Have a great time farming and get some good sleep, friends. I'm Sleepy Cat, and I'm tired. Good night.